and there was a 167% increase in conversions. Why I love this example is that you don't need to make your offers more attractive. You just have to.
Meet Matt Sucha, CEO of Mindworx, best-selling author of The Hidden Yes, and one of the world's leading experts on behavioral economics and sales psychology.
You can add as many things as you want, and I still won't buy from you.
Matt has spent the past decade helping major companies drive sales using research-backed methods.
No matter whether it's B2B or B2C, marketing or sales, the one thing that everybody has in common is that they neglect to uncover and remove those factors in the pool.
In today's conversation, we uncover the biggest killer of conversions in sales,
The biggest killer is
data-backed strategies you can apply today to boost your sales.
these first two stages, set behavioral goals and uncover barriers. You are creating your persuasion plan. Understanding the zone of acceptance is absolutely fundamental for anybody in the business of persuading.
And Matt's number one advice to every business owner, marketer, and salesperson listening.
4 words. Start with why not.
I'm Howie Chan, host of the Influence Anyone podcast and founder of the Behavioring Company. If you want to boost sales, let's get into it. I'm super curious. There's a lot of people out there selling courses, and truthfully, there's a lot of people teaching about selling courses, and they're not teaching it the way that you're teaching it, obviously. It's kind of like, if you do A, B, C, D with no regard to psychological barriers, you're going to make millions of dollars, and most people don't, right? And they feel really terrible. They put in all their time, all that money, and they get nothing. What are some things you feel like people should do? Or maybe there's some revelations when you launched yours that they could really turn that around for themselves?
That's a good one. The answer is the zone of acceptance. When you reach out to someone, when you meet someone, they are not ready to buy from you. And you have to understand that they are not ready to buy from you. So you have to ask yourself, so what is a smaller action they are prepared to do right now that will expand their zone of acceptance? When I walk into, or my colleagues for that matter, into a meeting with, let's say, a head of digital sales at a large bank, well, they're not ready to do business with us. They don't know us. Maybe they've heard something, but they're not ready to take out their credit cards and pay tens of thousands of dollars. So we ask ourselves, so what is a smaller action they are prepared to do right now? So what we usually offer is, well, and if you want, we can just come in, and for your team, we can do a 1-hour presentation for free about how to build customer journeys with consumer psychology in mind. Well, sure, let's do it. I mean, that's a no-brainer. They're prepared to do it. We come in, we do this presentation. They all love it because we have been improving it for years. And then suddenly their zone of acceptance increases. And now they might still not be ready to go for a huge consulting project, but they might be ready to go for a training program. So we start talking about the training program. Then they engage during the training, and we get to know the people, and they see that we really know what we're doing. And then they might be ready to go for more training or a consulting gig. And there's one other thing that we have started testing now, and it's really working well. And that's that our training it's several modules, and there are some mentoring sessions. There are some support systems that really help you implement and apply all the stuff that you're learning. And we tell people, well, you know what? It's difficult to decide whether you want to invest in an expensive training without you actually experiencing it. So here's the deal. You go for the first module risk-free at no costs. And after the module, you decide if you liked it or not. If you didn't like it, no sweat. Fine, we walk away. We'll ask you for feedback because we want to improve. And only then, only after you have experienced it, and if you like it, then you can decide to go for the full training.
Oh, I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah. I feel like it just opens up the moves that you can make, right? It's not sell or not sell. No, there are other things that you can do to increase the zone of acceptance, to get people to be warmed up so that they are ready to say yes. And you're
Absolutely.
right, most people are just not ready to buy, and you keep selling, they're gonna, with psychological reactors, they're gonna push back on you all the time.
And this is what we also teach to our licensed trainers. We have a rather elaborate and thought through system on how to sell those trainings. But a central piece is
Mm.
that make people experience the training or experience you as a trainer. So we give them a precise slide deck for a 1 hour speech, that we
Yeah.
advise them, well, go into those companies and do it for free. Do it for you. We guarantee they will love it. I did this. I attended a conference as a speaker before Christmas. I think it was in November, and I did this exact slide deck that we're giving to our licensed trainers. And toward the end of my presentation, I always put up a QR code, and I tell them, "Well, guys, many of you are probably wondering where can I learn more. So just click on that QR code and tell me what you would like to happen after my presentation ends." And there are 3 or 4 options. The first one is, well, send me 3 books on consumer psychology. Send me more information about your training, or let's hop on a one-on-one call and talk about collaboration. Because in the audience, for different people, their zone of acceptance is different. For some of them, they're not ready to hop on a call. For some of them, they are ready to hop on a call. So why should I only offer something smaller? So I let them choose. And with this slide deck, I got 120 responses, and 60, I think 5 of those were either I want to learn more about training or I want to hop on a call. So that's
Wow.
the power of first, letting people experience your stuff, and expand their zone of acceptance. And then at the right time, give them options to choose from.
It's kind of like, if you go to a grocery store, free samples of a product have worked for decades and decades and decades. Why wouldn't it work for services and training and coaching? Don't be afraid of having people sample what you do. If it's great, they're going to want more of it.
Well, the understanding the concept of the zone of acceptance, I think, is absolutely fundamental for anybody in the business of persuading people. Because as you just said, so often when you hear a no, you just conclude, well, probably it wasn't a good fit. They didn't understand my offer, or I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm a terrible marketer. I should quit. But what the no really means is that the customer, the client, is not ready to do what you are asking them to do. Nothing else. We should accept it. Fine. If Howie is not ready to do what I ask you to do, I shouldn't quit, but I should ask myself, okay, so what smaller action are you ready to do that would fall within your zone of acceptance? Why is this smaller action so important? Is that every action you take gradually expands your zone of acceptance. Let me give you a real world example. So we had this huge international banking group as a client, and they were running campaigns aimed at selling personal loans. It was the usual. So we have 15 million customers here, so we just send one email to everybody. Do you want a loan? It's a special, deal. No, I don't want a loan because, well, it's not within my zone of acceptance to take a loan. Why would I? And so then we thought, okay, so how can we gradually expand the zone of acceptance? We call it, how can we warm up customers before we actually give them any offer? So we conducted some research, and what we found out was that for whom a loan would actually be very suitable, they won't go for it because of several reasons, because of several psychological barriers. First one being they think that a loan is a financially irresponsible decision. So they will rather, ask their family and friends and so on. The second thing might be that this was true, especially for business people, that uh, they they think that they don't need a loan, but they have a supplier, and they come in and they tell them, well, look, if you take this and that much of supplies, I can give you a 15% discount. Right? They don't have that kind of money, but that's
Right.
what the loan would exactly be amazing for, because even if you pay a 5% interest, let's say, you would still be better off taking the loan and getting that supplier to give you 15% discount. But they simply don't think about it. So we first ran a series of communications, and we designed a couple of landing pages that were not selling anything. They were just, teaching people about different financing options. The pros and the cons of borrowing from family, of different financing options, and we let them explore. Then once they took a couple of actions, so they investigated those different financing options, they read our communication, they clicked on things in the emails, then we send them an offer, because our hypothesis was that, well, once they took these smaller actions, their zone of acceptance expanded, and at the same time we were able to address some of the uncertainties they had in their subconscious, like it's an irresponsible financial decision. And we saw a 49% increase in conversions when it was A/B
Wow.
tested. Just by including this kind of additional warming up sequence, where the goal was to remove the barriers and to increase the zone of acceptance.
I was gonna ask you about the increasing the zone of acceptance. Does it always come with an action that they take, that's sort of smaller actions before the big ask? Does it come with actions all the time?
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you understand by action? Because an action can be that I just answer a couple of questions if we're on the
Right.
phone or sitting in a meeting. So it can be as
Right.
small as something like that. It
Mm.
doesn't need to be that you go somewhere or you read something. This entire process of expanding the zone of acceptance can happen, within a single interaction, within 5 minutes, within 3 minutes. But yes, it is about taking actions.
The idea of the zone of acceptance by Matt is a really important one. It means that a no is not really a no. It's a no in the current context. So your job is to take that no seriously and put together a offer so you can get a yes. Understand that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. That's physics, but it's also psychology. It means the harder you push, the stronger of a push you get back. So instead of doing that, pushing more, think about what you should do instead. What you should do to expand that zone. Find the next yes. Instead of how do I get them to buy now? Think, what are they really ready to do next? What is the next move? The next thing you can do is remove a barrier. I love Matt's metaphor of a car, of taking away what's blocking its way. So instead of thinking about how I can get this person to do more right now, what is the ultimate barrier? Is it a fear? Is it a risk? What are they really afraid of? And offer up something different to help them take the next step. So it could be saying, hey, I'm going to change the way that you pay. The payment structure can be different, or I'll let you take a sneak peek into this for 2 weeks. So whatever you can do to help them get into sort of that next step by removing a barrier, a fear, a concern, an uncertainty, that will help them. If you're interested in using this for your business, I put together something for you. It's a full prompt that you can use. You can plug into ChatGPT or Claude, whatever LLM you're using, to come up with a few things. How you can look at your offer, how you can look at your situation and expand the zone of acceptance by giving you options based on behavioral science. If you want this and you're listening on a podcast, it will be in your show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, it will be in the description. It's the zone of acceptance expansion prompt. Interesting. As I look at your journey, right? Like you were studying mathematics and then, you were going on your way to become an actuary and then you started to work for clients because you're so in love with consumer psychology. I mean, how did you even get started with like your first client? Because you were not an academic. A lot of these folks are like, all right, academics, and then they do consulting on the side and they have papers and they have all these sort of authority and credibility stamps. How did you go about doing your thing?
I remember exactly, actually. On the 1st of September 2015, that was my first day as an unemployed person. First time in my life. With this idea that I would build a consultancy. And I
Did you
didn't really
quit?
know.
You quit your
Yeah,
job. You
I
quit your
quit my
job.
job. I quit my job. And on the 1st of September 2015, I suddenly, was out there building my business. I didn't really know what to do because I had zero network. And so what I started doing was spreading the gospel
Okay.
everywhere I could. I got in
Right.
touch with some newspapers, magazines. I offered, to write columns, write articles and all kind of stuff, speaking at universities, the tiniest of meetups and conferences. And
Right.
then I started meeting people. I wasn't afraid to do things for free. I had this one coffee place. I used to go so often. And one day I reached out. Well, I just stood up and I went to the owner. I was like, well, you know what? I'm doing this consumer psychology thing. What if I redesigned your menu so that you get more money from people? They were like, sure, let's do
Okay.
it. So I took the
Okay.
menu, I redesigned it, and then they printed out their new menus and they saw some results. And I was like, well, okay, it looks like it's working. And then I met, a friend and her boyfriend was working at this financial advisory, and she was like, well, I mean, he might be interested in the stuff you're doing. And we met, and then he really was interested, and he referenced me to his boss, and this guy also got interested. So I suddenly was running this first workshop, for a bunch of experienced salespeople, and me, a 27-year-old standing then there in front of them, teaching them about how to sell. I was like, well, I mean, if this works out, I think I'm onto something, and they loved it.
What was the key belief or key lesson for those sales guys? Because like you said, right? They're very experienced. They're all like, I know everything about sales. What are you going to teach me? How did you open that workshop? Like, bring me a little bit into that day and what happened and what'd you do?
I just think that the advantage for everybody in this field or trying to enter the field, the biggest advantage is that our topic is super interesting. It's super sexy, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I was hearing from the most experienced salespeople in the room was, well, you finally explained what we somehow felt all along. You suddenly were able to uh, stick words and explanations onto techniques that we saw are somehow working. And this is super helpful because we are now able to pass it on to our more junior colleagues and apply it in different contexts.
So you gave them language, you gave them
Yeah,
a way to
exactly.
share, you gave them a way for them to teach. So it's not like you said, "Oh, hey guys, this is your new sales training methods." No, you kind of
No,
gave them the language of how to think about it.
absolutely. Absolutely. I spent maybe 100 hours preparing for that workshop. And I went through all their sales materials and all their presentations and everything they were using in a meeting with a real client. And I
Right.
was able to really show them and pinpoint, well, here, this sentence that you're doing here, well, that's exactly this principle that I have just been talking about.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So Matt, what have you found about sales folks that are perhaps unique because they are in the financial industry or insurance that you have seen, and perhaps what you think that maybe all salespeople have in common? Can you help me kinda look at that? Because you obviously work a lot in those industries. What have you seen and found and believe in?
Very often the patterns are the same. The mistakes that those people are doing are the same. The first part in my book, that when you think of persuasion, when you think of convincing someone to do something, you tend to think of it in terms of, well, how can I make my offer more attractive? How can I motivate Howie to do what I want him to do? Very often, and research shows it, science shows it, and our experience shows it. This is the fundamentally wrong question. Because when a person doesn't do what you want them to do, more often than not, the problem is not a lack of motivation. Very often they are motivated enough. Maybe, it's not through the roof, but they have, enough motivation. But what's holding them back are some psychological barriers. No matter which sector, no matter whether it's B2B or B2C, marketing or sales, the one thing that everybody has in common is that they neglect to uncover and remove those psychological barriers. You know, have you ever pushed a car?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Last week where my car was stuck in ice because 'cause I'm in Minnesota.
Okay. So imagine that you are pushing your car. You have some 10 meters to go, and you keep pushing, and it's going, and then 5 meters to go, and then suddenly it stops. Well, what do? I mean, the first impulse is to walk around the car and to see if there's not something, under the wheel that you run onto, or something, that blocked the car. And very often there is something, you just remove it and you
Mm,
keep pushing.
mm,
When it comes to sales, well, basically we are supposed to do the same thing. We're trying to push the customer towards a successful sales. But when they, just suddenly stop, they start pushing back and they're not moving where we want them to move, we don't walk around the car and look for the barrier. No, we tend to think, well, okay, if they're not buying, we should probably make it cheaper. Or
right,
what if we just added these three services for free, because it
right,
will make it more attractive? If I feel like you're trying to sell me something and I just don't want to be sold, and I'm afraid that what you're advising is for your own benefit, not mine, well, you can add as many things as you want, and I still won't buy from, because there is this, psychological barrier called psychological reactance. When someone is pushing me to something, I have the tendency to push back. So you can be adding as much motivation as you want, and it won't help. But if you manage to remove this, barrier, if you manage to just maybe squeeze in one or two more sentences, suddenly this feeling of I'm being sold to disappears, and you don't need to give me discounts. You don't need to give me more things on top, because the path will be clear. So this is the
right.
power of really understanding the barriers and removing them.
I love that you, in your book, really brought up sort of these 4 core barriers that you see every time, over the decades of working with folks. What are the other 3 that you see that are typical that come up again and again?
The biggest killer of conversions of sales is uncertainty. If nothing else, if people don't remember anything else from my book, from this conversation, it should be look for uncertainties that your clients, your customers are experiencing. And this is the very first place where we start in each and every of our projects. We always ask ourselves the question, why not? What are the barriers? And more specifically, what kind of uncertainties are these people experiencing? And well, I can give you one of my favorite examples in the book. It's a very nice tiny case study we did with one insurance company a couple of years ago. They had this important campaign they were running. The goal was to, they had hundreds of thousands of existing clients, and they wanted to give them free travel insurance for 1 year. The business goal behind it was, well, the more products you have with us, the less likely you are to leave. And also, after the free year ended, it would automatically renew, and you would start paying for the travel insurance. So they designed a campaign email. The conversion was just awful. And so they turned to us and they were like, "Well, look, I mean, we have this campaign here and it's not working. Can you please look at it and help us improve it?"
And
And
it's free, right? It's like, it's free.
it's
Why aren't people
exactly
signing up?
this is the thing, and I wasn't working on the project. My colleagues were, but the very first thought they had was, "Well, look, I mean, this is a good product at no costs. So how much more appealing can we make it? You cannot make it more free, and you don't
Right,
really
right,
want to
right,
pay
right.
people, to
Pay
get a
people
free
to use
product."
it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so they thought, well, probably there's no way that we can really increase motivation here. So we should instead be looking for barriers. We conducted small research with clients, and we very quickly uncovered two main things that were holding people back. The first one was that the first thought people had when they read the description of the insurance itself was, well, but why are they giving me anything for free? Should I rely on the insurance, or when I travel, I'm better off actually buying a proper insurance because this is not reliable enough. And of
Right.
course, if you don't trust the product, then you won't go for it, even if it's for free. So what we did were two things. The first one was in the description of the insurance itself, we told them, well, and this insurance covers all the most frequently purchased coverages, using social proof here. And a side note on social proof, behavioral experts, the consumer psychology experts love to talk about and to teach. But the truth about social proof is that very, very, very often it backfires. Why? Because it raises a red flag in the minds of your customers. So social proof is 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste. Okay. Whenever you hear this, it kind of raises this I'm being sold to alarm. So you
Yeah.
should be very careful about using social proof. But there is one situation when social proof is super effective, and that's in situations of uncertainty. When I'm not quite sure what to do, then I tend to look at what others have done. And this was exactly a situation of uncertainty. I wasn't sure. Is this a proper
Mm.
insurance coverage or not? Well, don't worry. It covers all the most frequently purchased coverages. And the second thing we did, we added the the sums insured, the coverage itself. And then there was another fear. And we have all been there. Enter your credit card and it's for free for 2 weeks. Well, you forget and you keep paying for years.
Right.
Every time you see something like this, this is the first thing that comes to mind. Well, I for sure forget about it. I'm better off not even going for it. And so we just added one sentence. Don't worry, you won't forget about your free year ending. We'll remind you well in advance. This new version was A/B tested against the old version, and there was a 167% increase in conversions.
Amazing.
Why I love this example is that it just so beautifully shows that you don't need to make your offers more attractive. You just have to understand what's holding people back, remove it. Once the path is clear, customers start coming in, start converting, start buying. The power of removing uncertainty.
Matt, is the uncertainty typically about information? Like they don't understand or they don't have all the information that they need?
Very often it's not only about information because people tend to think of uncertainty or removing uncertainty just by giving you more information. Like in this case I just mentioned, telling you or reassuring you that we will send you a reminder well in advance. It's not about giving you more information. Also, for our listeners, don't think of uncertainty just in terms of product or service information. Think about it in terms of the entire customer journey. Let me give you one example that blew my mind. 2 years ago, we launched a licensing program where we license trainers across the globe for our surf method. And when we had our first cohort of trainers, of course, I was interested in learning about their barriers. And a magical question is, what nearly discouraged you from doing business with us? So I went to those people, those 6 brave souls who decided to join the program in the first cohort. And 2 out of the 6 told me one thing that I never thought about before. They told me, well, you know what? It all sounded really great. And I trust in your methodology. We have been following Mindworx and yourself for a while. But the one thing we were afraid of is if the program is open for everybody, because we don't want to be, the company of mediocre people. They were afraid that in the cohort, among their fellow licensed trainers, there would be, average people that we haven't vetted. And it was like, wow, I would never think about this. And of course
Right.
we do it. Of course we run interviews. Of course we want to have experienced trainers. But then in our communication, in our materials, we explicitly said, well, and the process for you to qualify is this, and that. Just to address this one uncertainty. The magic of hunting for barriers is that very often it doesn't require, more than a couple of conversations to uncover some of the biggest ones. Talk to your customers, you ask the right question, run your pitch or your communication by someone who is not involved, and they will tell you, they will tell you what they think, what's happening as they are reading through your landing page. And I guarantee this will be just eye-opening.
I want to expand on uncertainty a bit because I think it's really important. At a behavioral science level, uncertainty kills action for 3 main reasons. Number 1, ambiguity aversion. We're wired to avoid options where the outcome is unclear. So even if the upside is really high, if it's ambiguous, we'll just hesitate. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to do anything. Number 2, loss aversion. We feel potential loss more than gains. So if your offer creates any uncertainty, the brain will ask, what if this goes wrong? What if I lose something? Instead of what if it works? So help them with that. Number 3, cognitive load. So uncertainty means more thinking is required. And the brain is inherently lazy. So when something feels unclear, complex, or open-ended, the easiest decision is not a decision. And so this is the key insight. Uncertainty doesn't just slow down decisions, it defaults people into inaction, not doing anything at all. So here are a few questions that you can use to start uncovering what are the uncertainties in your prospects. The first would be, what would make this a no for you? This surfaces hidden objections very early. The next question is, what feels unclear, uncertain right now? It's very simple, but also very powerful. You're giving them permission to say things like, I don't get this part or that part. And number 3, what would you need to feel confident in moving forward? And this reframes the conversation from I'm just pushing you into doing things into let's solve this problem together. And so once you understand what are the uncertainties, don't push back. Don't say, that they misunderstood something. Just tell them clearly. And if you don't understand, just say, hey, I'll come back to you on this specific time and date. And you know what? That builds trust. Matt, so once you have understood or at least found out what those key barriers are preventing you moving forward. Now, this idea of the car, the analogy of the car is great because I'm like, yeah, you got to remove the stuff because no matter how hard you push an accelerator, if you don't remove the ice, you're just going to be stuck, right? It's just not going to move, go anywhere. So once you identify that, what's next? What can people think about? How can they sort out what levers to pull? Because like we talked about right at the beginning, there are so many things that they could use. How should they go about thinking about that?
That's where the surf method actually comes in, because what I have seen so many times is, be it a training or be it a book, it sort of covers different principles, which
Hmm.
is fine, which is okay, but it doesn't really give you a comprehensive methodology. Where should you
Hmm.
start? What
Hmm.
should you, start doing? The first, second, third step. You have your product, you have your, I don't know, sales process, communication flows, and so on. But where should I start improving it? And so the SURF method basically is the answer to this. And I'll give you an example of how it can be beautifully applied basically to any kind of customer interaction. And it's built on three fundamental mistakes. The first one, we've already talked about it. So our tendency to focus on motivation instead of removing barriers. And the next mistake is that we have the tendency to very quickly jump to creating solutions. For instance, your direct email doesn't convert the way you want it to convert. Well, what if we send it at a different time? What if we just change the subject? What if we I don't know, and you come up with 100 different ideas? But will they work? Well, I don't know. Probably not. because because if you design solutions, it should be a solution to something, because we very seldom define what is it that we are trying to achieve. And with communication, you can change three things: how the person feels, what they think, and what they do. And if you are not clear about how you want me to think, feel, and do, and at each step of our interaction, you shouldn't even think of designing solutions. Let me give you one example. This was one training we ran for a bunch of salespeople, and there was the head of sales, and he was like, "Well, Matt, this SURF method, it really sounds super intriguing, and this concept of removing barriers and setting behavioral goals, because behavioral goals are what I just mentioned. What do I want you to think, feel, and do? But could we apply it to my own case? Because in the coming weeks, I will appear in, I think he said, 5 panel discussions at various conferences. And I want to make the most of those panel discussions. Let's try to do it." And there in the training, we started working on this panel discussion. Well, first thing you need to do, because if you look at the panel discussion, it's a thing that lasts for an hour. And what should you try to improve? Well, first, split it in 4 to 6 stages. Okay, fine, easy enough. So coming on stage, sitting down, and the introduction by the moderator, the first answer, then the main discussion, and then the last answer, where you maybe can say call to action or something like that. Okay, splitting into stages, no problem there. And now for each stage, you define your behavioral goals. Let's say in stage 2, as you are being introduced by the moderator. And that's a tough question, because people tend not to think about it in this way. So what do I want the audience to think? Well, probably I want them to think this guy is credible. This guy is relevant. This head of sales said, well, I would like people to put down their phones and start listening. Okay, a great behavioral goal.
Right.
But I also want people not only to think that I'm a credible person, but also that I'm a nice guy. Well, great. Fantastic behavioral goals.
Will you always have a think, a feel, and a do for every stage? Or could you pick one or two? Or
You don't necessarily have to have all three. It might be that very often, actually, it happens that in our projects, in our workshops, people have several what do I want them to think goals for one stage, and they have no do goals. So it's just like a rule of thumb. Think about these 3 things.
Okay.
So then once you have set your behavioral goals, you move on to uncover the barriers. Why wouldn't people think I'm credible? Why wouldn't they think I'm a nice person? And why wouldn't they put down their phones? Probably in the introduction by the moderator, he doesn't really build my credibility. Probably in the introduction, he only talks about my professional successes and doesn't say anything that would portray me as a nice person.
Mhm.
And maybe they don't say anything that would kind of prompt people to put down their phone and start listening. And these first two stages, set behavioral goals and uncover barriers, I call them that you are creating your persuasion plan. Now, you shouldn't even start thinking about solutions. Now, we have our goals, we have our barriers, and we can start designing solutions. So this is the power of behavioral goals. The same goes for the last stage of the panel discussion. Of course, you have your call to action. So, for instance, you want people to come and look you up after the panel discussion. So you can tell them, come and see me after the panel discussion during the break. We have our behavioral goal. Now, why not? What are the barriers? Well, I don't know where to find you. I might be shy to approach you. I might think that the question I have is too dumb. I might not be there because I have to leave now. I might have another appointment already scheduled. Once I start coming up with all the barriers, then I can adjust my final pitch. I might say, well, and guys, um, please don't be shy to come and see me during the break. I'm so happy to talk about any questions you would like to touch on, and you will find me just to the left as you exit this conference room by the big blue banner. And if you have to leave now, just throw your business card on the table and we'll reach out and we'll send you our CEO report 2026. In one answer, you were able to address all those barriers that were holding people back. And this one sentence might actually make your panel discussion appearance 3-4 times more effective.
What does SERVE stand for?
So S stands for set behavioral goals. What I want people to think, feel, and do. U is uncover the barriers. Why people won't perform those behavioral goals. And then R is remove the barriers. And F stands for focus on motivation. So you see that the motivation part is at the very, very end.
Is last.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Is at the
very
end.
last. And, it's just so nice to see that we have these big surf kind of templates where we work. We use different barriers and ideas, solutions, sticky notes in the appropriate stage of the surf method. And when you just take a step back and you look at the template, there is just so few things in the motivation part and just so many things in the barriers and removing barriers part. So even if
Right.
you just forget about motivation, uh, and you do the barriers properly, you'll just get to amazing results.
Every human interaction, like you said, is an ability for you to influence, to change minds, to
Yeah,
change behaviors.
absolutely. And by the way, Howie, I was thinking that, well, why shouldn't we do something like this for the listeners of your show? So
I love it. I
for
love it.
all of you guys listen, you're probably thinking, well, I mean, it sounds intriguing, this consumer psychology thing. And this guy, I mean, there are some interesting pieces of information. So, but is his book really worth my time and my money? Well, for all those of you, just go to thehiddenyes.com/influence. And there, 3 steps. You first click on I want to get the book for free. Okay. You then choose in which format you want the book, and you give us where to send the book. You get it for free, and then in 2 weeks' time, you'll get an email from us with 2 buttons. Yes, I liked it and I want to pay for it. No, I didn't like it. I don't want to pay for it. This is an option for you guys to experience the book for free. And if it's valuable, well, you will just pay the regular price. If it's not, well, you just tell us now it wasn't worth my time and money. No sweat. We'll be happy there's one more book in your library.
That's amazing. Practicing what you're preaching, Matt. That's amazing. No, You guys should definitely go do that. I mean, go read it. I have it with me. When I was talking to Roger Dooley, which you know him as well, obviously. I mean, that's also one of his thesis, right? About friction. Friction, removal of friction is so important, not just in sales, in finance or insurance. It's really the key thing that people most miss.
One thing though, because it's quite easy to misunderstand barriers and friction.
Let's get into that.
We're all kind of uh, told to make things frictionless, but people usually think about it in terms of, well, we have to make the process as easy as possible, as few steps as possible. And this is great. Of course, you should do it. But it doesn't mean that if you make it easy and really frictionless, that you will also remove the barriers. Because
That's
the
right.
important thing is it's psychological barriers, you know? So
Right.
I can make the activation of the travel insurance just a one-click thing, but people still won't do it if they're afraid they will forget about it. So let's just be
Right.
careful
Right.
about, friction and how we understand friction. So removing friction is
Mm.
great, but understanding and removing barriers is something else, and it's super important.
Oh, that's very good. I think that's an important nuance. Thank you for that. Because yes, I think when people hear friction and frictionless, it does default to UX. But you're right. What we're talking about here are psychological barriers, psychological friction, whatever. But it's psychological. It's preventing them from doing the things that you want them to do. I'm going to read you a post you wrote on LinkedIn about a year ago. And I have some questions for you. As I was walking to the post office to pick up an envelope, I knew there was a letter from the communal authority waiting for me. Nothing special, nothing serious, but at the moment that I saw the envelope, my pulse raced. Why? There was a red stripe on the envelope. And the first thing I thought was, I'm in some kind of trouble. So before I ask you about the lesson, I think what's really intriguing for me is as you have spent so much time in consumer psychology, what's the blessing and the curse in looking at everything around you through the lens of that?
Well, that's a good one. Well, uh, I don't really think there is a curse. People might mind, but as I walk through the street, I see billboards, I see everything, and then I cannot help but analyze it. Well, this doesn't make any
Right.
sense. Well, I mean, what an obvious mistake here. What if you just did it like this? It would be so much more effective. But I don't mind because I love it. So this is
Right.
what's going on through my mind all the time. And the same thing happens when I'm being sold. I get a
Mm,
cold call, and I very often just stay on the call just to listen to their strategy. And I'm like, well, okay,
mhm.
you didn't address this barrier, and this is an uncertainty that I have listening to you. I also see, my own kind of biases and shortcuts that I use in my own decision making. And sometimes I
Uh-huh.
laugh at myself. Like, well, did that really work on you? And I'm like, yeah, I did.
That's amazing. That's the amazing thing, isn't it? I mean, even the late Daniel Kahneman says this, we're not immune to these biases. We're human, right? We know these things are true and we, quote unquote, fall for it, even though we know it. Because it's a human truth. It's just what we do. So tell me about the stripe on our envelope. What is the consumer psychology behind it? Why did it have this effect on you that you had to open it? You had to see what's inside.
Look, that was probably if I remember correctly, it was a fine. It was a parking ticket or something like that. Now, looking at it from the point of view of the local authorities, uh, well, they want you to open the letter and they want you to pay the fine. As simple
Yeah,
as
yeah,
that.
right, right.
Because if
Right,
you
right,
don't,
right.
well, they have a lot of troubles with me. And if we look at this from the surf method perspective, if they had applied surf on this interaction, the first stage would be, opening the envelope. Well, okay, so what are the behavioral goals? Of course, I want Matt to open the envelope, but what do I want him to think? Well, I want him to think that this is important.
Mm,
Then you ask yourself, why not? Why wouldn't I think think it's important? Well, and one of the reasons would be because I don't realize it's an important letter, because it resembles all the other envelopes I'm getting. And now you're coming to the idea. You have to distinguish it somehow from other
Mm-hmm.
envelopes because you want me to
Mm-hmm.
notice it and you want me to feel like it's important. Now, I had this one other experience. I was in Scotland, and we had a car, and we were driving through Scottish Highlands, and it was all beautiful. And usually you have these signs all over the world: slow down. And you
Mm.
see a sign, slow down, and what do? Well, you don't slow down. But in Scotland, they had a different sign. They had a sign that said, slow down now. And how does it make you feel if you see a sign that tells you slow down now? It's like,
Danger,
well,
right? If you
danger.
don't,
I
there's
mean,
gonna
it's
be danger,
important. I
right?
have to slow down now.
Right,
So, it's
right.
just one word, one innocent word, but it just makes the sign so much more effective.
I mean, it's like you said, understanding what are the psychological barriers that stand in the way of what you're trying to do. It's such a thoughtful thing. Two more questions for you, Matt. What is the cost of not understanding that in every interaction there is a hidden yes? What is that cost?
Well, the cost is mediocre results. You are doing already a lot of things. You're putting a lot of effort into your marketing, your sales, your communication, your product design. And you're just leaving on the table so much, in simple terms, so much money because you haven't really uncovered the hidden yes, the path to the hidden yes. And very often you don't need huge overhauls of everything. No, very often you just need to understand a couple small things that you can improve and you'll suddenly unlock just great, amazing results. And that's the power of consumer psychology. But consumer psychology done in a clever way, not by just putting all kind of principles on your communication. No, 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 no. First, understand what you're trying to achieve. What kind of behavioral goals? What is holding your customers back? And only then jump to creating solutions. So that's what I think people are missing out on, leaving on the table if they don't try to uncover the path to the hidden yes.
You got me pumped up, man. You got me pumped up. What what is if you could leave a sticky note that summarizes or at least reminds people of what we just talked about, Matt. Every business owner, every marketer, every salesperson, if they could read that sticky note every time before they have a conversation or before they have that sales call, what would that be?
4 words. Start with why not. Start by uncovering the reasons why not. Why customers are not doing what you want them to do. What's holding them back? So this is the crucial, critical question. Why not? And if you start there, I guarantee you will be very successful.
I love it, Matt. All right, guys, please go get your free book. Go get it, go read it, and go answer that question, yes or no. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on. This is an absolute joy.
Howie, thank you so much for having me.
Matt just showed you how to remove barriers and how to influence any sale. If you like that, you'll want to meet Dr. Robert Cialdini, the godfather behind all of persuasion science. In our conversation, we dove into the most powerful tactics of influence and one that even involves the late, great Charlie Munger. If you're watching this on YouTube, simply click right here to meet Dr. Cialdini. If you're listening on a podcast, it's episode 50, and you'll also find the link in the show notes. I'll see you there.